Hello, welcome to the Connecting to AWS vSRX Instances Learning Byte. I'm Gordon Mosley with the Education Services Department at Juniper Networks. Let's get started. After watching this learning byte, you will be able to connect to AWS vSRX instances using SSH. Before you can launch a vSRX instance in the Amazon Web Services environment, you have to create a key pair. vSRX instances in AWS do not support password-based authentication. When you connect using SSH, only SSH key-based authentication is supported, hence the need to create the key pair. Now, this screen demonstrates using the AWS Ec2 Dashboard. And in the menu, you'll see key pairs on the left-hand side. Select that and click the Create Key Pair button. The only main configuration information you need to supply is just simply a name of the key. And please remember the name of the key. A single key can be used to authenticate with multiple vSRX instances. Once the key pair has been created, you can now move forward with the process of launching a vSRX instance. Whether the instance is launched manually or using automation tools such as CloudFormation, at some point in the process you will be asked to identify the key pair that was previously created. I've launched a vSRX instance in Amazon Web Services in the US East Northern Virginia region, and there are 4 interfaces that have been attached to that vSRX instance. This is the FXP0 management interface. This is going to be the interface we're going to use to connect to this instance, and it has been assigned an elastic public IP address, and that's how we're going to get there. And there's also an elastic IP address assigned to the GIGI000 interface, but this interface doesn't have enough Junos configuration yet to be in use. There's a GIGI001 that connects to a private subnet, and GIGI002. You will see these interfaces, okay, when we connect to that instance. I'll show them to you. I just want you to kind of understand what you're looking at. I did not spin up, I used CloudFormation to spin up the interfaces and the route tables and the other components, but I did not spin up a couple of Linux servers just because I don't really need them right now for this learning byte. So I'm going to connect now to AWS, and I'm going to show you the instance. We'll look at some of the components. Then I'll show you how to actually connect to it using an SSH client. This is the administrator workstation that I use to manage my AWS resources. This is the Ec2 Dashboard, and in the menu you select instances, and you can see any AWS instances that you have running for your account. And in this case, here's the vSRX instance. It's running, it's instantiated, the health checks have passed, and then once I select the instance, information appears down here at the bottom of the screen. Here's the public IP address that's been associated, the elastic IP address that's been associated with the FXP0 interface on this instance. You can scroll down if you're interested in seeing more information. As we saw previously, the instance state is running. Here are both of the elastic IP addresses. Here's the one assigned to the FXP0 interface. This top one is the interface, the elastic IP assigned to the GIGI000 interface. This is designed to be the revenue port on that device. This is the IP address that would receive customer traffic, for example. And so there's additional information. Now the part that's interesting to us for this learning byte is at some point, once the instance is up and running, you might want to connect to it. So the magic is in the connect button. So the connect button displays a screen that gives me all the information I need to connect to this particular instance. Right? So we want to open an SSH client. I'm just going to use a simple terminal window here on this administrator workstation. We know the name of the private key file, right? In our case, it was called student key, right? It identifies that for you. When you launch the instance, remember, it asks you, what key file do you want to use? And we identified the student key file. Now, there's some security issues, right, that these keys are very important. They're used to authenticate to your instances. So we want to make sure they aren't publicly readable, right? And so there's some, if you're on a Unix workstation, as I am right now, there's some permissions you want to be sure you configure to make sure your keys, aren't publicly readable. And then they show you the public IP address. We saw this a little bit earlier. Now these little flags here kind of over to the left allow you, if you click on them, it copies this interesting information for you. But the easiest one to me, here's the actual SSH command that we can use to connect to our instance, right? So I can copy that command. Now I want to focus on this command a little bit. So I copied it to my clipboard, so I'm ready to go here. So we're going to secure shell, and we need to authenticate using a key, right? And so here's the key file that we identified a little bit earlier. Now here's the part that is going to be a little bit different. vSRX instances that are spun up in Amazon Web Services have a little bit different factory configuration applied to them than the standard Junos initial configuration you may be familiar with. You cannot connect as root. There is one user account created, and it's called Ec2 User. So this command is close, but we're going to have to modify it a little bit. And that's what they're saying here. This is just a generic name. It's up to you to kind of figure out the exact name you need to use in this command. So I'm going to go to the terminal window. I'm going to paste in the command, and I'm going to remove the root username, and I'm going to replace it with ec2-user. Nope, I need to spell it right. Let me try ER. And now I can hit enter and secure shell into the device. Let me enlarge the terminal window. Let me run a show configuration command. So this is the initial, the factory default configuration that is installed on a brand new vSRX instance after it's launched in the Amazon Web Services environment. And so this is the EC2 user that we logged in as, secure shelled in as, and we authenticated using a secure shell public key. There is no password authentication supported. And so here's the FXP0 interface that's getting a dynamically signed a private IP address from AWS, but that is also combined, associated with that public elastic IP address that we use to secure shell into the platform. Now I can, once I'm here, I of course can enter configuration mode and load a more complete config that meets my needs. Let me show you the interfaces. Right, remember there were three interfaces. The GIGI 000 interface is kind of our public revenue interface, and there's really the rest of this architectures on GIGI 001 and GIGI 002. We would connect some Linux servers and use the vSRX as the security enforcement point to protect those customer resources. So that's the basics of how to connect to a vSRX instance in AWS. In this learning byte, we connected to AWS vSRX instances using SSH. Thank you very much.
Visit the Juniper Education Services website to learn more about courses. View our full range of classroom, online, and e-learning courses. Learning paths, industry segment and technology-specific training paths. Juniper Network's certification program, the ultimate demonstration of your competence, and the training community, from forums to social media. Join the discussion.